So you've been writing for a while and you've got this manuscript and you think that it's ready for editing. Now, is it really editing you need? Is it feedback? There are different types of editing. That's what we're going to look at here. What type of editing is your manuscript ready for? First of all, I'd start actually probably not with editing, but with general feedback, a general big picture review of whether the whole thing holds together, whether there are general weaknesses. And actually, this is something, if you're part of a writer's group, you may be able to get feedback on each chapter as you are writing it, so that you don't go off course before you've even begun. So at the first stage of feedback, it's not really editing. But when the manuscript is complete, you've actually still potentially need a structural edit. And this needs that skill at seeing the big picture, but also seeing the smaller picture, looking at those subplots, saying this one is just a distraction, or this one would really strengthen the whole book if you brought more in here, or with the different character development. That's a more of a big picture structural editing. And that requires a certain type of reader, a certain type of skill set, not necessarily one that you're going to find in your writers group. There are people who specialize in doing this. They are structural editors. So when you've worked with a structural editor and you completed your manuscript now, and it's as good as you can make it, there are no plot holes, the character flaws are deliberate, they're not inconsistencies, they're all part of the way you intend the book to work, the way you intend the story to develop. And with a non-fiction book, you've made sure that everything is where it needs to be, and it's just generally, it's the best that you can do. The manuscript is complete. Well, the manuscript is complete, but now you need to move on to the next stage, which is copy editing. And a copy editor will start to look at the styles that you're using. You may have developed a style guide with all your character names and how they're spelt, with words that you use frequently to make sure that you always spell them with a hyphen or without a hyphen. In non-fiction, words like online, that can be two words, can be hyphenated, can be a single word. You have decided which one you want to use and you're going to stick to it. Well, the copy editor is going to be looking out for things like that. Things like the quotation marks, singles or doubles, things like your punctuation consistency. And the copy editor will work through using a style guide if you've got one, or they may develop their own as they go through. They may have one. If you're writing for a publication, you may be following the publication style guide, but it will make sure that your manuscript is now not just the book, the story, or the non-fiction book is finished, but it's now internally consistent. When your copy editor has finished with the process, what you will have is a manuscript which is now ready for layout. And it should at that stage go to the layout artist and be formatted. And then along comes the proofreader. And now the proofreader is the final stage of editing, and they're looking at the tiny details. They're making sure that things haven't crept in that shouldn't have crept in at that point of layout. They're looking for spelling mistakes. They're looking for misplaced commas, misplaced spaces. They'll be looking at consistency of capitalization, consistency of spacing, all sorts of details. And these are fundamental because this is what makes a book stand out. If they're not done, it will stand out in a bad way. But if these things are all ironed out and the book is well laid out and it is correct, then what it does is it makes a smoother read. Maybe the reader won't go, wow, that was a beautifully laid out book. But they won't put it to one side and say, I don't want to read it. There's something wrong with it. I'm not sure what it is. Because those inconsistencies are the ones that sort of make you feel uncomfortable as you're reading. If the plot doesn't absolutely keep you in there, and you start finding little mistakes and a comma wrong there and a capital letter missed there or a character name spelt wrong there, it just makes you feel the author didn't care. They hadn't done it well. Why should I care? And that's when you will completely lose your reader. So we've talked about different types of editing. We've had the general feedback, deep structural editing, copy editing, proofreading. And the problem is that now it's much easier for anybody who is a competent writer and knows a bit of grammar to say, I can do that, I can edit your text for you. And unless you actually know exactly what they've understood by editing, you are not going to necessarily end up with what you wanted done. Because if you give a manuscript to a proofreader, when what you really need is that structural edit, you need to make sure that your character development's right, you've come in at the wrong place of the wrong part of the process, the wrong stage. So it's fundamental to talk to the person you ask to do the editing and make sure that you and they are on the same page and that you get what you want done and that they know what you want done. Maybe they can't do it. Maybe you need a different person to help you. Much better to come back to that person when they are the right person for that phase of editing, rather than end up with everybody feeling frustrated.